Chapter 7. Everlast was full of the sweet aroma of baking. Ibrahim entered and sensed the presence of Elif. Whenever she was home from the hostel, she started baking. It was her hobby. He looked at the corner of the living room and found her, busy in the kitchen, her face glittering with success. She was lively and humming a song. She looked at Ibrahim and her heart raced. She glanced at him, her eyes searching his face for something, but Ibrahim passed the smile, but his expression was unreadable. Elif took a deep breath. She could see the effort he was making to stay distant. "Right on time. Now come and have some cake." Ibrahim nodded and teased her. "I am fed up with your cakes. Why don't you start your business so we can earn money?" "Rubbish, you know. I only bake for you." "That's why. I am saying to open the bakery and spare me." Elif's eyes broadened with surprise, really. "Yes." Elif walked out from the lounge, leaving the cake on the central table. Ibrahim's eyes chased her to her room. His internal struggle was palpable. He hated the distance he was creating, the walls he was building between them. The sadness of pretending weighed heavily on him. He wished he could be honest with her. After Nihar's death, Ahmet had shifted to his study room, so the bedroom was in use by Ibrahim and the guest room in Elif. Hazibi always enjoyed their petty disputes, though they were not. His mind caught up in the meeting between him and the officer. His warning, his astonished gaze, and his concern, all things indicated something strange, unusual and bizarre. "You shouldn't open this case, Ibrahim. Let Sam and his team handle it." His officer was quite unpleased to see the documentation of Mehmet's case that was transferred to him. "If this case is solved, it will be me. Because this case owes me a lot." "You better know what you are doing." The whole scene was unbearable and unforgettable, his mind repeating it like a haunting nightmare. When his mother was in his father's arms, covered in blood, and the man he liked, was crying on his knees, his father's fuming and sorrowful gaze. What was the relation between them? Why was he crying on his mother's death? Why was his mother saving him? Why did his father want to shoot him? Why did he gaze at him furiously and with hatred? Some unsolved riddles needed to be solved, and he decided to do it, unaware of the consequences he had to bear. He wanted to know the history of Mehmet. It was the missing puzzle in the case. He didn't know where to start unless he met someone who knew Mehmet. He had already discussed that point with Sam, and he agreed. Sam was his best friend from his school life. They both joined the CIA. He knew about that case from Sam, whose team was secretly working on it because of the loss of CIA's best agents Paul and Nihar. But somehow he got to know and used his connections to make that case his. Sam started searching the past of Mehmet, and Ibrahim decided to talk to his father. He knew it was shocking for him. He went into his study room. Ahmet was sitting on the armchair reading a book. "Dad, are you free? I want some time." Ahmet put the book on his side table and carefully looked at him. "Anything serious?" "Yes, probably." "Go on." Dad, Ibrahim cleared his throat. "It is difficult to talk to him. Maybe I'll hurt his feelings or underscore," he thought quietly. "Do you want to speak, or only want to repeat, Dad?" "Yes, of course, Dad. Do you remember when you met Mum you both were working on a case of—" "Stop. Ibrahim, I don't want to discuss this anymore. But I need to ask." Ibrahim's tone made him sense danger. "No means no, Ibrahim. If you don't have anything else to talk, then leave me alone. I want to concentrate on my book." "Okay, I am leaving. Escape is not the solution, Dad. We will talk about it. I am not done." Ibrahim left the room. Ahmet stared at his back, thinking what he was up to. It was not the first time he talked on this topic. After that day he was eager to know about Mehmet. Ahmet kept avoiding discussing it, but he was as stubborn as his mother. He didn't want his only son to partake in this case. He was against his decision to join the CIA, but Ibrahim didn't listen, and now he was opening the case. That was an alarming situation for Ahmet. Ahmet decided to call the office to get information. He was still in touch with them, though it had been 5 years since he had retired. It was almost 2 a.m. and Ibrahim was on his bed but wasn't able to sleep. The smiling face of Elif appeared before his eyes whenever he tried to close his eyes. His mind was so confused he wanted to love and protect her forever, but his decision to open the case, the sense of danger, and the painful memory of losing his mother and her parents made him hesitant to open his heart to her. How cruel fate is, to give me a love so pure, so deep. Every breath I take without her is a betrayal of my heart, yet every moment with her would be a risk I cannot allow her to take. If anything ever happened to her because of me, I wouldn't survive it. No, it's better this way. Better to walk away now than to hold her close and watch her suffer. She deserves better. A life of peace, of laughter, of dreams fulfilled. I must be strong enough to bear this burden for both of us. Even if it means I will carry the weight of this love alone, in silence, for the rest of my days. For her sake, I must let her go. And in doing so, I know I will lose the one person who made me feel like I mattered. These endless thoughts kept coming to his mind, so he left the bed and opened the file he was working on. But it was useless. This time his heart only wanted to see Elif. He put all his decisions aside and stood up. Elif was asleep when Ibrahim quietly entered her room and strode toward the bed. He stood near her bed and looked at her yearningly. Her face was serene, lips slightly parted, and a soft warmth radiated from her, as if wrapped in a gentle dream yearningly. With a deep sigh, he moved closer and bent his knee on her side. For a moment he hesitated, afraid to wake her up, but couldn't resist and kissed her forehead softly, tenderly, almost fleeting like a whisper, filled with warmth and quiet affection. His mind reminded him of the promise he made a little while ago. Suddenly the airy room felt suffocating. He felt short of oxygen. Leaving the room, he went into the garden, took deep breaths, and relaxed his soul. He sat down on the placed chair in the garden, the weight of what he had just done sinking in. His thoughts swirled, trying to make sense of the moment the way his body had moved on its own, driven by an impulse he hadn't meant to act on. It wasn't planned, wasn't controlled, but somehow it had felt inevitable, like a force too strong to resist. Now, in the quiet aftermath, he found himself wondering how something so unintentional could feel so right, so undeniably true. The next morning, Elif woke up and lazily lay on her comfortable bed. She unconsciously touched her head and felt something, the touch of love. She tried to remember, reminiscing of the dream made her smile. She dreamt that Ibrahim kissed her forehead, though it was not a dream. Her mood was elated. She freshened up and left the room for breakfast. She had to leave after that for the hostel, and Ibrahim was supposed to drop her. Ahmet had breakfast and now he was reading the newspaper on the sofa near the dining table. Hazibe and Ibrahim were at the table having breakfast. Hazibe's daughter Firide was serving. Ahmet looked at her happy face while Ibrahim was eating his breakfast, looking like it was the most important meal of his life, ignoring his surroundings, but he was well aware of every move of her. He wanted to look at her face but couldn't dare. "When you will leave for the hostel?" Ahmet asked her, averting his gaze from her happy face. He knew she liked his idiot and annoying son. He hoped Ibrahim didn't act foolishly against her true likeness. "After breakfast, Dad." Ibrahim dropped me. "Me?" "Yes. I am late from my office. If you want me to drop you, be quick. Or you can go with the driver." Her happy face changed colour after listening to his suggestion. "No, be seated. You are supposed to drop me. That was decided." Ibrahim was annoyed with her attitude and force. He didn't want to hurt her feelings, so he tightened his lips. "Hazibe, have you packed my cookies?" "Yes, my love. Now, when will you visit next?" "Why?" "I want you to meet someone." Hazibe's words choked down Ibrahim's food in his throat. Who? And why, she asked, raising her brows. Somehow she understood what she was talking about. Ahmet was silently observing his son's expressions, each flickering of emotion. "We want you to choose someone as a future partner. You are 24 now. He is the son of Ahmet's friend and wants to meet you." Elif quietly nodded, as she didn't have any hope of love from him. She decided to talk to Ahmet on her next visit. "Let's go. I told you I don't have much time." Ibrahim stood up and said angrily. Everyone at the table looked at him surprisingly, while Ahmet held his smile. Elif ran into her room to bring her bag and Hazibi into the kitchen for cookies. Ibrahim treaded angrily, his fists clenched at his sides. "Dad, I want to discuss something before meeting your friend's son. Hope you take it seriously," she said slowly while saying goodbye to him. "Don't worry, nothing will happen without your consent." Elif hugged Hazibi and her daughter. She wanted to say a word to her, but the continuous honking of horns made her rush towards the outside. Coming, take your hands off from Horn. Ibrahim, his anger was scrutinized by her. "What do you think, Ibrahim? Should I meet him?" "I think you know him. Don't you?" He stared at her with smouldering eyes. There was something unspoken in his gaze. Elif preferred to remain quiet, and they both remained silent throughout the way. He stopped the car in front of the hostel gate. Elif got out of the car and asked in a trembling voice with hope, "Do you like me, Ibrahim?" The silence between them became heavy and suffocating as she waited for his answer. Each heartbeat was echoed in the silence. Ibrahim paused, a million thoughts racing in his mind. He could feel the tension, the fragile hope that hung in the balance, waiting for his response. He didn't want to reply, but he has to. "No." Ibrahim's cold reply made her freeze too. Her heart sank, and a flicker of hope suddenly extinguished. Her heart was echoing his words, "Why?" Her lips slightly moved. She knew he loved her. She looked away, fighting back tears, struggling to gather the pieces of her shattered hopes. He hit the gas hard, raced the car, and left her standing all alone in shock. He stopped his car after a while, threw his head on the steering, and took deep breaths as someone strangulated him. The pressure of the moment suffocating, the words he had said made it difficult to breathe. His heart was protesting. He knew it had to be done, but he didn't imagine it to be done this way, and at this time,